Hello, good afternoon, and good morning for everyone who is joining today. Welcome to the Cybersecurity Webinar 2025. My name is Irina Bondarenko, and I'm going to be the moderator of the session today. The session is going to last approximately 1 hour with a Q&A part in the end, so you can keep your questions till then. The session will be recorded and posted on the website afterwards. So for everyone who wanted to join us but couldn't today, they can watch it later. And now let me introduce our speakers. So I'm very pleased to share that we are joined by Michael Daum, Global Head of Cyber Claims at Allianz Commercial, Rishi Baviskar, Global Head of Cyber Risk Consultant at Allianz Commercial, Tiffany Calhoun, Global Cyber Operations Leader at Allianz Commercial, and Robin Kroha, Principal Group Cyber and Information Security at Allianz Group. Now, before we go ahead, let's see what we're going to cover today. So first, we will start with the cyber claims overview provided by Michael, including different trends and challenges. Then Rishi will cover how the risk landscape is expanding, and then detection, response, and training will be covered by Robin and Tiffany. As mentioned, we will have in the end Q&A time. So in the meantime, if you have any questions to our speakers, please use the Q&A function in the bottom right corner of your window. And with this, please, Michael, over to you.
Thank you, Irina, and welcome all. Thank you for joining our session today. I would like to provide an overview of cyber claims trends we have seen in 2025. Actually, I've got very encouraging and good news to share. But before, allow me to put things a bit into perspective and start with our risk barometer. So for 2025 business risks, cyber again ranked #1. And cyber itself is really linked to a couple of other topics. I just wanted to highlight two here. One is changes in legislation and regulation, and there particularly the data privacy legislation is relevant because we cover these kind of incidents, and that's why there is a clear link between this. And maybe even more relevant, number 10 here, new technologies. We're seeing new trends like further outsourcing into cloud environments, and first and foremost, maybe the application of artificial intelligence. And all of these trends I'm mentioning are really connected to cyber risk and will be play a very important role also going forward. On the next slide, we're just diving one step deeper, because all of the respondents that mentioned cyber as a top risk were asked, well, what's your top concern within cyber? And interestingly, it's not been the typical attack, ransomware, malware that has been ranked #1, but the respondents ranked data breaches with 61% as their top concern. And indeed, particularly last year and this year, we've seen some very high-profile data privacy incidents and losses. A particular trend, which is currently ranked #4, I would like to highlight, disruption from failure of digital supply chains, cloud service platforms. I would not be surprised if that climbs up for the next year's risk barometer, because what we've seen in 2025 is actually a lot more incidents, attacks, exactly via these supply chains and third-party providers. One slide further, please. The overview for this year is pretty encouraging, as I was mentioning. So we still have roughly 60% of our losses originating from cyber attacks. 40%, and I will provide further details in a minute, are from different triggers of the coverage. In terms of claims frequency, it's actually pretty encouraging to see that the number of claims is pretty stable in our portfolio. Why is that encouraging by itself? Because the sophistication of attackers, the number of attacks keeps increasing and increasing, and also the total economic impact. There has been recent studies shared, for example, here in Germany by Bitkom and the German Verfassungsschutz, or the FBI with its IC3 study. So these studies keep highlighting that overall, across all companies, the impact from cybercrime still keeps increasing. So it's good news that our insureds, which represent a positive risk selection, actually remain on a stable level in terms of notifications. But even more encouraging is that the impact or losses in the first 6 months of 2025 have actually significantly decreased, roughly by 50%, which is quite remarkable. And you might ask yourself, well, is that just a one-time dip, or is there like a mid-term, long-term trend backing this? And is that going to continue? I can share, at least after 9 months, we just closed our books for 9 months. It's pretty much the same figures. So the trend has continued also for the last 3 months. And there is also a clear explanation from our claims experience why our insureds, so well-protected companies that have invested significantly into their cyber defense capabilities, are performing better than previously. And one particular aspect I would like to highlight, and my colleagues Rishi and Tiffany will cover that later as well, is the power of detection and response backed by artificial intelligence. So it's, so to speak, easier than ever to spot attacks at an early stage, then certainly to contain these attacks, and with that to mitigate the loss. Because I know we've been stressing that a couple of times, the effect of catching an attack very early is significant. It makes the attack, last year we communicated a figure, times 1,000. So it's really way less expensive for a company if they're able to catch and contain an attack at a very early stage. So with that, the bar, so to speak, for attackers to successfully infiltrate, attack a well-protected, typically large company has been further increasing, and we're seeing the positive impact. Well, and then the question now is, how do attackers respond? And there is multiple ways, and rest assured, the attackers are about to find new ways and explore new tactics and apply them. So one of the trends we would like to highlight and see is, if these typically large, well-protected targets are even more difficult to attack, attackers go to less protected, typically smaller companies like mid-corp companies or SME companies. So that's one trend we are seeing. It could also be different territories, say like Asia, which had not seen such a lot of cyber claims activity in the last years. So attackers could go to other territories, attack different client sizes. So that's one trend we're seeing. Another trend we are seeing is if IT, and that has really been quite elevated in terms of the technical security, is so hard to crack and hack. We humans are back in full scope. So attackers again applying more and more social engineering in order to get a password reset or steal credentials, etc. So that's resurfacing. And despite all the elements of the human firewall, like trainings, awareness, phishing exercises, a well-made phishing email attack will still make people fall for that, and that's back absolutely on the radar. There is even more ways what we see attackers. So not to name another one. If that particular company you would like to attack is very well protected, attackers these days often try to go via suppliers, IT suppliers, cloud providers, etc., and make use or leverage that path to get into the ultimate victim and target. So to make things a bit more tangible, one of our largest losses this year, and one of the largest losses in the whole industry, I believe, actually started at an outsourcing provider of our insured, specifically there at the help desk. And the attacker called and fooled the sales, or as the call center agent, sorry, to reset a password, and with that the attacker was actually successful in getting into the ultimate target, namely our insured. So threats, as I mentioned, supply chains, privacy regulation, social engineering, these are overall the trends to watch, and as my colleague Rishi will provide more details on that in a minute. Yeah, let's move on to the next slide. And I mentioned AI already initially at the risk overview there, and its connection to cyber. And also the connection to social engineering, because attackers certainly do leverage AI in various ways. One is to, for example, write tailored phishing emails, also for deepfakes, also to create write malicious code. And we've reached that stage where also the AI is capable of orchestrating other tools to attack. And with that, it's a very powerful tool for attackers, and we see it being used to successfully attack our insureds. That said, it's also highly beneficial, certainly on the insureds or the defendant side, particularly the AI-empowered detection tools. We have very positive experience with our insureds that have such techniques, tools applied, can typically respond way faster and mitigate and contain the attack very successfully. Yeah, moving on to the next slide. In terms of trends, we often get asked, well, what are the industries typically mostly attacked? Actually, that is like a moving target, because a lot of attackers these days, like Scattered Spider, are known or notorious for targeting specific industries sequentially. So we've seen a lot of attacks on retail this year, and then it moved further to airlines, also insurance, other industries. So that's a typical pattern today. So that's why whatever you see in terms of trends today might be different tomorrow. So no one is safe, no industry is safe. But generally speaking, there are certain elements that attackers like, and why retail, I believe, is here to stay on top of these lists. And an important element or attractive for attackers is any large company, because then the amounts a company might be willing to pay are on average higher. Then a high number of personal records for the kind of double extortion, also threatening to release personal records. And then any, well, time-critical business is also highly attractive to attackers because it increases the pressure for the victim, for the insured to pay. And all of these elements are present for retailers. Typically high turnovers, typically these days with all the loyalty programs, a lot of customer data, personal records, and then often time critical. Think of supermarkets, for example. And often with retailers, there's alternatives for the client also for grocery shopping, for web shops, which means once that particular victim is unable to deliver, the pressure is high because there are alternatives and customers will go away and shop somewhere else. So that's why I believe retail, we've seen it this year. We expect to see that going forward. Yeah, in terms of attack trends, if we move one slide further, Irina, thank you. We tried to highlight with this slide what we see as risk landscape, whereas trends. And if you take a look starting from 2021 here, the first thing which is really quite obvious is in 2021, we had a lot of cases, or a high share of cases, which were attack driven. So where it's really the attacker was attacking our insured directly. And over time, if you go year by year, you see that these dark blue bars or these parts get lower and lower, and there's new elements. So there is contingent business interruption losses, where it's not our insured who has been successfully attacked, but it's actually a supplier. It could be a IT supplier, it could be a physical goods supplier. So that's a trend we are observing and watching. Another one is technical failure. A very prominent example from last year, indeed, was the CrowdStrike incident. But that's also here to stay from our perspective, with more and more technology getting applied. The chances of some kind of technical glitch causing a business interruption is higher than ever. A positive, maybe last trend, I also mentioned legislation and wrongful collection of data. So no cyber attack, but just merely the wrongful processing or collection of data. That trend actually we have not seen in 25 anymore, after years of increasing share of these kind of losses, which is good news. And apparently companies these days are more careful to comply with applicable data privacy legislation and standards. And so that's why for these kind of data breach losses, we're optimistic that trend is stopped. Yeah, that was my brief overview of trends. I would hand over to my colleague Rishi, who will provide more details, insights into the expanding risk landscape.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So let's have a look at the risk landscape in more details. So first one is credentials overtaking the malware. What we are observing is the bad actors are stealing and abusing legitimate credentials. They could be username, passwords, SSO tokens, maybe session cookies, API keys, even sometimes privileged accounts. So rather than delivering malicious binaries, they are relying on credentials. So once they get valid credentials, what they can do, they can move across the network, access the data, and continue their attack without dropping obvious malware. Because of that, the detection is becoming really harder. So we're seeing a couple of trends here. First one is credential-based attacks are increasing. So because of phishing, social engineering, credential stuffing, all of these becoming easier with the help of AI, and the scale is higher as well. Secondly, lots of clients use multi-cloud. They also have software as a service solutions. So what does that mean? If you have one set of credential, it often opens lots of resources. Also EDR, so endpoint detection and response tools, they are malware focused. So they look into malware propagation and so on. If you have credentials, valid credentials, it becomes really difficult because these can bypass these type of defenses. Also, people use same password for many reasons. Sometimes the weak MFAs, all these makes the compromise really simple. And what's happening is we observe is initial access brokers are industrializing these credential thefts, and they are reselling to different threat actors as well. Same thing. Couple of observations from CrowdStrike's Global Threat Report 2025. They also highlighted this, that initial access brokers are selling these compromised systems, and this has increased by 50% in 2024 as compared to 2023 numbers. They also mentioned that 80% intrusion detections were malware free. So what the bad actors are doing, they are increasingly using valid credentials. They're using access broker services, social engineering methods, session hijacking and so on. So instead of traditional malware dropping on endpoints, they are using credentials. Secondly, we also saw attack techniques are shifting. So Michael mentioned Scatter Spider. This group made lots of headline news last year, earlier this year as well. They are using different social engineering techniques. One of them is SIM swap. They're also using push bombing, where once you have a valid credential, you need to bypass the MFA. So how do you do that? You just send multiple requests to user device. And because of that MFA fatigue, user just accept one of them, and that's how they get their access. So once you opt in credential, you install your remote access tool. Obviously, you bypass MFA, and this is how the malware-free technique work for these bad actors, and they're becoming harder to detect. So what should companies do to prevent this? So their strong importance should be given to cyber hygiene as a first line of defense. That means enforcing stronger MFAs, applying stricter access controls, limiting user access to business purposes only. Michael also mentioned prevention is very important. So detection and monitoring capabilities. If you catch the attack earlier, then the losses become less expensive. So overall, it's very, very good. So, and lastly, keeping people trained is highly important because those are your front line. One thing I would like to highlight here is malware isn't dead. We've seen the trend has been shifting to credentials. Malware is still there. So all good practices to prevent malware spread, those still apply. Next slide, please. Okay, CBN supply chain. So this is a next significant trend we have seen that has emerged in last year and a half, that cyber attacks around IT supply chain, those are increasing, and lots of companies are dependent on them as well. Because of that, what's happening, we're seeing contingent business interruption events are becoming very, very prominent issue. Just looking at the numbers around supply chains, they made up 15% of all large cyber claims by value for first half of this year. This is more than double what we saw in 2024, which was just 6%. And CrowdStrike also did their research. One of the biggest driver around this is cloud. So cloud intrusion was up by 136% in first half of this year only, as compared to whole year last year. So what it highlights, it's not just a direct attack. We need to worry about all our partners, suppliers, cloud platforms, IT services that we depend on every day. And this challenge, IT suppliers and partners becoming very difficult to manage, because as technology moves, the method of sophistication of cyber attack is changing as well. And that creates few challenges for companies who are heavily dependent on these external vendors. Also, we have interconnected businesses. That means one supplier going down will have far-reaching consequences. We saw that in terms of CrowdStrike's example last year. So what should companies do? They should look into how they manage their suppliers tightly, have thorough contracts, strict access control, obviously, and ongoing monitoring about their suppliers, doing regular audits. So in short, they need to be proactive and manage their supplier and govern their supply chain at every stage. Next slide, please. Okay, tech failure and outages. So thanks to the technical hiccups, we saw our first significant claim, which finally came through last year. Also last year, for the first time, we saw technical failure triggers brought business interruption on our large claims. So technical failures and data privacy issues, they made up around a third of all our major claims in value. That is 28% of large claims in value. And that also, the example which Michael given, CrowdStrike, that coincidentally matches with that, because CrowdStrike event brought down 8.5 million Windows system in one incident. That disturbed operations from finance, manufacturing, airlines. So what it has highlighted that tech failure can ripple across multiple sectors, and it could create unexpected challenges as well. If we look at the system outages specifically, those system outages are mainly tracked into a handful of causes. It could be buggy software bug somewhere. It could be misconfigured systems, open ports or whatnot, or just mistake done by admin, sloppy admin practices. And usually, a combination of all these could lead to a bigger disruption. Also, in terms of cloud downtime and IT service disruptions, the risk also come from natural disasters like flood, hurricanes, wildfires. And if it is utility related, which is power and internet failure, these events can cause downtime. Also, data loss, we see network interruption, operational risks are increasing because of this. So it's becoming complicated with the tech failure and outages. Next slide, please. Okay, so privacy regulations and litigation, they are continuing to develop. We know the evolving privacy regulations, data privacy laws as well. They are expanding globally. So US has state laws like CCPA, CDPA. They also have Federal Trade Commission, which enforces privacy and security standards. In EU, we have GDPR, very strict under strict rules for data privacy. And other countries are picking up as well, like Canada, Brazil, India. They're implementing their own data protection laws. Privacy related litigation, they are on rise as well. So lots of class action lawsuits. They can attract substantial settlements cost, regulatory enforcement like imposing fines for non-compliance. There could be third-party liability as well. So the business can face lawsuit because of cyber attack where partners and vendors get impacted. So what it shows that companies are facing more privacy regulation and litigations, cross-border compliance challenges, and all these are basically pushing both frequency and severity of the claims. Specifically to the trends of data breach, we have a couple of them we observed. One is non-attack breaches, where there is no cyber attack, but data was disclosed, be it human error or misconfiguration, or it could be just lost device, a laptop left somewhere, or somebody just accidentally pushing sensitive information of web page or app, and so on. But what we observed, these are on rise as well. In 2024, non-attack data breaches accounted to 18% of cyber claims by value. And that was 3 times what we saw 3 years ago. Secondly, we also saw technology and media claims are going up as well. So first half of this year, it made quarter of large claims by value, which is up by 20% as compared to 2024. And then legal and regulatory landscape becoming complicated, noticeable surge in US privacy litigations. 2024, they had 1,500 data privacy actions filed in because of they have different state privacy laws and also very proactive plaintiff community there. So for example, several high profile cases were involved, companies allegedly failing to comply with CCPA, and that resulted into fines, settlements, and so on. Secondly, the new technologies, they are creating problems as well, and class action popping up around them, especially around web tracking tools. If there are claims around, unauthorized data has been shared. It could be apps or website that tracking online behavior of a person. So we have examples like TikTok, accessing in-app browsing, browser tracking they have. Also Google's incognito mode data collection, Meta's forced consent model, all these attracted multi-million-dollar settlements. So what it shows, financial risks are increasing for the companies who are handling personal information. On top of that, we have complexity with AI and biometrics. AI, as we know, they have several privacy concerns around their data collection, consent, and so on. A couple of years ago, Italy's data privacy regulators fined OpenAI by $15 million, euros, because they couldn't provide transparency around ChatGPT. Biometric as well, good for security, but when it comes to privacy, it could be challenging. So laws like Illinois BIPA can bring lots of strict rule around it. So what do we do to help our clients? We provide them critical support in event of cyber incidents. We provide breach response and crisis management services during cyber attack. We also help the client offering expert support, managing response, and trying to keep the damage under control. Last point, future of privacy laws. What we gonna see is by 2026, about half of the US population will be covered under comprehensive state privacy laws. That means stronger protections will be needed for personal data, and companies governing that need to be very proactive. With that, I will hand over to my colleague Tiffany. Thank you.
Very much, Rishi. Recent events have highlighted the importance of mature cybersecurity policies and practices. We have seen the implementation of just standard controls such as patching and MFA having a direct impact on the outcomes of claims and losses. And when companies have made the decision to integrate their cyber hygiene into their operations early, over 80% of large claims are influenced by these actions. They could have been avoided or reduced. Claims reduction isn't only influenced by basic controls for security, but also having the appropriate detection and response policies too. Detect early and responding effectively could reduce ultimate dollar values by a factor of 1,000. These capabilities are expanding as we've seen with a growing market for such services. There's investments in MDR, managed detection and response services, as evidenced by the projected growth of this industry to $12 billion by 2034. The expansion of services extends to companies focusing on their key exposures, such as business interruption, and the ever-changing security landscape to address emerging threats and to limit their incidences' impact to operations. Companies aren't playing catch-up to bad actors anymore. Reducing claims also includes the people of your organization. They're crucial to defense. Training, educational campaigns such as phishing emails, and practicing simulations are key. While there are also internal technology that we've discussed previously and training that you can do for your employees, there are also external resources such as insurance that can reduce the financial impact of these events. Cyber insurers are with an insured during an event through an extension of the data breach coaches and data breach experts to manage the life cycle of an event. Access to such experts and the policy can have critical impact on the outcome for our insureds in terms of financial loss through liability, regulatory fines and penalties, or first-party losses, but also directly impact the reputation of our insureds. It's the combination of these three areas that has proven to reduce the cost of claims. Next slide, please. And as we previously mentioned, companies are just showing more and more resiliency when these events happen due to some of the practices and training and partnerships that they've established early. Ransomware events have taken the majority of the press. However, there's actually stabilization of these of the frequency of claims. However, this shouldn't be interpreted that bad actors, ransomware groups are going away or given up when faced with our insureds and company defenses. We've actually seen a 56% increase in these groups in the first half of 2024. Companies who purchase insurance and see it as a tool in their arsenal recognize the true financial impact of these events, but also benefit compared to the uninsured. Insured saw a 70% increase in loss impact as opposed to a 250% increase in the economic impact of cybercrime during the same 4 period. Clearly, insureds that are using insurance as a tool to help them in this time of need are seeing benefits. Awareness and investments equate to organizational resiliency. The benefits of cyber insurance doesn't stop at the hands-on guidance during an actual event and the reimbursement for a loss. It includes key threat intel, vital to detection, and access to legal and technical experts. They're able to collaborate and create tailored responses that incorporate the insured's operations and test event-based scenarios in the form of tabletops and pre-breach services. These are also living strategies and action plans that need to be tested with regular cadence and change with the threat landscape. Tabletops are only going to enhance preparedness and should be reviewed with a regular cadence that reflect the cybersecurity realities of today and tomorrow. Next slide, please. And I feel we cannot talk about cybersecurity and the changing threat landscape without talking about AI. but I'm going to actually discuss it in a way that you might not expect, not from a bad actor's perspective. AI isn't just used by bad actors, but rather technology really leveling the playing field for our insureds against them. Companies who have implemented AI in their detection and response plans are benefiting from the acceleration. This earlier action is impacting the bottom line, with those using AI seeing an average savings of $2.2 million in data breach costs. AI is clearly a critical part to IT security, and 2/3 of companies are already using this technology. This is a figure I wholeheartedly expect that we will continue to see increase in the future. It's the companies that use AI to help with the detection of phishing, malware, and unusual behavior of their employees. These are common attack vectors that will gain the defensive advantage. An example includes faster response times, reduction in business interruption by using security orchestration, automation, and response tools. In closing, before I turn it over to my colleague, Robin, I've spoken about the numerous ways an insured can directly influence and improve cybersecurity event outcomes. Consider AI detection, another method in conjunction with the improved cyber hygiene that we all hope companies are implementing. Focusing on people within your organization and regularly training them and continuing to keep them aware of the threat landscape. And also of all the ways insureds can benefit with claims handling, threat intel, and access to key experienced experts when partnering with an insured during a cyber event. Robin, to you.
Thanks very much, Tiffany. So ransomware. Ransomware is something that we've been looking at for quite a few years, and it's emerged as the most prominent cybercrime threat, with incidents becoming more frequent, sophisticated, and more financially damaging. These attacks are increasingly targeting large companies with hefty extortion demands, costing organizations at least $6 billion globally last year. The commercialization of cyber attacks is exacerbating the problem. Cyber criminals are adopting franchise models, selling malware to other attackers, making online vulnerabilities more widely exploitable. This trend is particularly concerning as it lowers the barrier for entry for potential attackers. And if we talk numbers, ransomware has been a dominant threat since at least 2018, affecting more than 50% of claims. It's not all doom and gloom. We're seeing improvements in detection, with more than 60% of incidents being identified internally by insureds post-2019. But here's where it gets interesting, and by interesting, I mean potentially catastrophic. Business interruption remains the largest single driver for cyber claims, accounting for over 50% the value of losses. The recent attacks on UK and US retailers highlight the potentially tripling business interruption on an organization. The cyber attacks on Marks and Spencer in April of this year was part of a broader trend of attacks targeting major retailers. The incident is expected to cost Marks and Spencer's £300 million in lost profit, with months of disruption, stock systems, and online sales. This attack was not an isolated event, as other problem retailers also fell victim to similar cyber incidents. Harrods, a luxury retailer, experienced a data breach affecting 500,000 customers. The cooperative group, commonly known as Co-op, suffered a significant financial blow due to a cyber attack in April again. The attack, attributed to scattered spider, which we've previously mentioned already, resulted in a massive loss of £80 million, or 107 million in operating profit the first half of 2025. This loss was broken down to 20 million in one-off incremental costs and 60 million from lost sales where systems were offline. The incident also compromised the data of approximately 6 million customers and affected stock levels at some stores. These attacks highlight the severe financial and operational consequences of cyber incidents in the retail sector. The same requirements apply to any sector where IT is an integral part of the value chain. These consequences underscore the critical need for robust cybersecurity measures, early detection systems, or comprehensive business continuity plan to mitigate the potentially catastrophic impact of business interruption. that's enough to make even the most hardened CFO break out in a cold sweat. But digital resilience is a prerequisite for doing business today. So what's the takeaway? Early detection, coordinated incident response, and business continuity planning are crucial. Organizations need to consider potential impact from loss of systems and disruption to supply or sales, as well as possible mitigating actions. It's about being prepared, or as we used to say, proper planning prevents poor performance. And in today's interconnected world, that means having a high degree of digital resilience maturity. So, in conclusion, the cyber threat landscape is moving rapidly and businesses must evolve with it. Ransomware as a service make attacks easier to execute. And unless adequate digital resilience is in place, even a single compromised password can lead to catastrophic consequences. It's time to strengthen our defenses, improve our response strategies, and ensure that we're ready for whatever criminals throw our way. And that's a lot. And the good news, next slide, is that we are being held by regulation, which is set to raise the cyber resilience bar. As we advance in the digital arena, we're implementing a strategic initiative to fortify our cyber defenses, the Network and Information Security Directive, also known as NIS2, in the EU. This directive is poised to be a major milestone in combating cyber threats. And despite data protection regulations like the EU's GDPR, many organizations, especially mid-sized ones, lack adequate preparation for the evolving cybersecurity landscape. And they often miss robust risk management systems, leaving them vulnerable because they don't understand what cyber criminals have in stock for them. NIS2 aims to transform EU cybersecurity by establishing a common framework for 18 critical sectors, including supply chains. Requires organizations to implement cybersecurity risk management measures and to report significant incidents. And that is novel as a first. So for those of you who work in insurance or the financial sector, more broadly speaking, you probably have come across the Digital Operational Resilience Act, DORA. DORA focuses on the financial sector resilience. NIS2 drives broader industry transformation. And globally, this focus on NIS2 reflects a trend toward enhanced cybersecurity regulations. In the US, the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act, CISA, promotes sharing cyber threat information between government and private sectors. Australia's Notifiable Data Breaches, NDB scheme, mandates notification of serious data breaches. All of these initiatives underscore the global push for cyber resilience, with NIS2 at the forefront for our EU audience. NIS2 and other such initiatives will significantly impact cybersecurity standards, especially for mid-sized companies, by enforcing best practices like backup strategies and business continuity planning. NIS2 will boost resilience in Europe, and other such initiatives will do this beyond the EU. Organizations embracing these challenges will better withstand and recover from cyber attacks, embedding resilience into their culture. And that's the paradigm shift. So in conclusion, NIS2 offers a pivotal opportunity for organizations to enhance their cybersecurity posture. Now is a very good time to strengthen our defenses and ensure resilience is central to our operations. So thank you, and may our cyber defenses be as robust as our resolve.
Thank you so much, Robin, and thank you so much to all our speakers. And now we finally got to our Q&A session. So for everyone who would like to ask a question, please use a Q&A function in the bottom right of your screen. We are looking forward to your questions, and we already have some. And I actually will take the first question about the slides. Yes, slides will be shared with you afterwards. They will be uploaded to our website, which is commercial.allianz.com. And also the link will be shared via an email shortly after the session. And now let's get to the next question. So what are some of the basic controls that can help, that insurance should have in place? Rishi, would you like to start on this?
Sure, yeah. So looking at our recent trends where, credentials or the shift is towards credentials than malware at this stage. So I will always start with, cyber hygiene, so basic things that matters most. we should we should harden our identities. So enforcing phishing resistant MFAs, maybe FIDO keys, for example, or web auth in, also having strong access controls. We can have conditional access, like where the device is connecting from, the location, device itself, the certification, having this best approach basically. Then rotating APIs and service keys so that those can't be reutilized. If there are dormant accounts, deleting them, disabling them. So these are the things the clients can do. Also detection, very important, flagging about odd logins, like 2 o'clock in the morning and it's somewhere else geographically would be a strange location for somebody to log in that time. So these type of detection techniques should be in place. Also unfamiliar devices, if there is suspicious MFA push fatigue incidents, those can be straight away looked into. And lastly, the training, as I mentioned earlier as well, people are our frontline defense. So this combination of all these can prevent such attacks.
Great, thank you, Rishi. The next question would be, what practical pieces of advice would you give companies when it comes to managing the risk of breaches at their IT suppliers and partners? Maybe Rishi, you can start and then someone else can also jump in.
So there should be a robust vendor management, obviously. So it's not just signing the contract, it's about managing how the entire life cycle works. That means having clear contractual obligations, controlling and limiting supplier access, also continuous monitoring of their activities. On top of that, in contract as well, if you have regular audits clause, you can perform that just to ensure their compliance. Also tiering the vendors by criticality, by risk, and then applying stricter control accordingly. These type of things can help us to manage the supply chain. Maybe Tiffany would like to add something.
Rishi, you've highlighted the key considerations that we look at from an underwriting perspective, but we are also asking our insureds, the extent of the audit. Are they holding their suppliers to the same security measures? Are there single source suppliers? Do you have a backup? How you test it from a tabletop perspective if one of your suppliers that's critical to your operations goes down. So it's not only the requirements that our insureds are going to put onto the supplier, but what is the insurer also doing proactively if that supplier does have an event?
Great, thank you both. Then the next question, what are your predictions for cyber claims activity for the rest of the year? Michael, over to you, please.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Indeed, what we can share is that the frequency of cyber claims picks up in the second half of the year, particularly in the last quarter. For more like natural catastrophes, you would have typical seasons as well, right? Like the hurricane season. I think for cyber, the busiest season typically starts with Black Friday because attackers really choose pretty wisely when to attack when that business is running at full speed, when they can create the highest negative impact. So from Black Friday onwards till end of the year or start of the holiday season is a favorite time of the attackers. That's when we see most attacks and losses. And maybe if I can share one example from last year, we had an incident attack at a pretty large US food and grocery retailer. Imagine a $50 billion business. And they were only very slightly impacted by that attack. So if you just Google, you wouldn't find a lot of information. So it did not really hit the headlines. But still, despite that relatively minor hiccup in their operations, when their first business interruption calculation arrived in our claims departments, they claimed for a $150 million loss. And Robin was citing earlier, losses at UK retailers. So these numbers can get massive. And just what I wanted to highlight, especially during that time of the season towards year end, when especially retailers generate a lot of sales and profit, the hit, the negative impact in terms of profits can be massive.
Great, thank you, Michael. And let's take the next question about cyber policies. So maybe Tiffany will be over to you. By the cyber insurance policy we are offering also response support to clients to restore their business. What is included in our response? Are we supported with preparing for business interruption? What is assessed by us on a potential client when a cyber insurance policy is signed?
I think we need to break this down almost in two buckets within a cyber insurance policy, because what your cyber insurance policy is usually going to provide is crisis management, data breach expenses, that first party loss, which usually includes contact with a data breach coach who helps quarterback the event and bringing vendors in. So you'll definitely get access to vendors such as forensics, IT forensic firms, public relations firms, crisis management, notification call center, everything that has to our insureds incur to figure out what has actually happened. So we need to figure out what's actually happened, and then actually how do we help them with the business interruption. A part of business interruption, there's usually extra expense or increased costs of working. This may include the insured having to get another supplier, having to get another vendor. Oftentimes these expenses are covered under policies. However, please look at your policy wording. I don't want to speak for the whole industry. So again, what you're getting with your cyber policy, you're getting the investigation and the first party costs to figure out what has happened. And then we're also adding expenses not only for the actual loss the insured sustains, but what they might also incur in addition. And then there's also continuous conversations of how business interruption losses are calculated. We would also provide assistance with a forensic accountant to come in and make sure that it makes sense. Your losses are make sense for your operations and over the period of time and the period of restoration. So it's multifaceted in how insurance policies can help an insured during a business interruption event.
Great, thank you so much. The next question will be for Robin. Are insurers working with clients to consult in advance on those business interruptions workarounds you spoke of?
The short answer is yes, depending on the exact breadth and depth of the policy itself. There are several highly specialized, highly focused advisors available that are made available through the policy itself, that they're part of the package. And that makes a lot of sense because proper preparation prevents poor performance, as I say. That said, one needs to bear in mind that cyber resilience, or digital resilience as we call it, is a multifaceted endeavor that touches upon various management systems within an organization. So whether it's IT security, information security, business continuity management, incident management, crisis management, and then also the business itself, because you can't do disaster recovery, for example, after a devastating attack, after which only 50% of your IT system is available for, let's say, 20 hours, without knowing which of your processes must be protected best or be brought back online first. And that's something where you will need not just one company with which you work, but you will need to make several efforts in various parts, layers, levels of your organization. But yes, generally speaking, insurance can and will help.
Thank you so much. And the next question would be about real estate operations. Have you seen any actual claims from building owners related to cyber incidents, such as breaches affecting building management systems, tenant data, or operational disruptions? If so, what types of vulnerabilities or scenarios have typically triggered these claims? Michael, maybe you can start and then someone else can jump in as well.
Yes, happy to start. I can keep my answer quite brief because the answer is no, we have not. That might be due to our portfolio composition, and maybe Tiffany can chime in. And one aspect, more like a hypothesis I would like to share is certainly very familiar brands, names, large companies typically resonate very well with the attackers. So that's why, I mean, I'm fully aware that also these kind of companies, real estate operators, often generate huge sales, revenues, profits, but still I would argue they might not be that well known, and with that might be better able to stay under the radar compared to companies really providing services to the end customer. But again, I'm just speculating here and hope Tiffany or anyone else can chime in with additional comments.
In my experience, I am not well at Allianz. I have seen one or two claims related to organizations that are managing building systems. There is a fear that, you know, the potential bodily injury, property damage component of if a bad actor gets into a heating system or an HVAC system, what could be down the road. However, I haven't seen that here, and it seems to be very niche and few and far between. Broadly, in a broader perspective, also from a tenant data, I personally haven't seen that. I think I saw that longer ago when such data was collected more in a physical format, because these real estate organizations weren't necessarily implementing their data into a cloud environment or on a computer system, but rather a file in the back room. So that was a very different era where cybersecurity or cyber policies was providing coverage than where it is now, where the threat landscape is completely different.
Great.
We recently war gamed this scenario, and I appreciate the question because it's super interesting as it stands as an example for how smart systems become ubiquitous. So yes, buildings are one example that we all know very well, but you see automation in other parts of our lives. So what we found out was, number one, it's typically not the building owner who operates the building. They've outsourced this to specialized companies. These companies have large data pools into which they feed information from sensors within the buildings. These data pools are a super interesting target for a dedicated, highly skilled attacker. So don't focus on something that is tangible. Don't focus on the building. Focus on the information that is needed to run the building or buildings, and then think further. You know, what could the attacker want? How could the attacker leverage access to a data pool such as this? And there are many things that they could do, from poisoning the data pool to using the access that they've gained in order to spy on individuals within the building and other shenanigans. The opportunities are boundless, and I cannot recommend wargaming enough. Run more exercises, run cyber exercises, focusing on attackers that think out of the ordinary, because that's what we've been seeing. A rise in these attacks in the last few years. Add to this artificial intelligence. And we know that attackers are leveraging artificial intelligence to come up with novel ways of exploiting systems, of exploiting smart building systems in this particular case.
Yeah, just to add into that one, example we can give is Target, where HVAC systems were hacked, and then it led to the infamous PCI data theft. But we haven't seen many of these recently. And most of these are like IoT or control system based attacks. So no, there is a scenario that this could happen, and as Robin mentioned, if you have lots of use cases, this can be picked up easily.
Great. And in the matter of time, we still have one more question maybe to cover. So maybe Rishi, over to you. In the context of securing the credentials, how we are securing hard-coded credentials, for example, middleware?
Oh, hard-coded credentials, good questions. What typically we look for is, system hardening. Basically, what happens is you take over the system and only let what is required for the business purpose, and doing system hardening as well is resetting the default password. So that's how you take care of this issue.
Great, thank you so much. And now we have 2 minutes to go, in 1 minute to go. So thank you so much for all of our speakers and for our audience who join us today. Just last reminder that we have recently published a cybersecurity resilience report. So if you're interested, you can either visit our website, commercial.allianz.com, or you can also scan a QR code and get directly to the page. Afterwards, the slides and recording will be shared with you via email. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to either to speakers directly or to Allianz Commercial Communications. Thank you so much for your time. And with this, have a nice rest of the day. Goodbye.